It's a real privilege on my part to be before you again tonight as we continue our discussion. The proposition that I am affirming tonight is as follows. The Scriptures teach that churches of Christ may build and maintain benevolent organizations such as Boles Home, Tennessee Orphan Home, Childhaven, and Home for the Aged for the care of the needy. First of all, I have some questions that we've already given to Brother Sutton. These questions are, is the church obligated to provide a home for widows indeed? Do you believe a woman must wear a covering on her head in worship services? Would you endorse an orphan home that has the elders of the church as the board of directors? May a natural home that is destroyed be restored in a legal orphan home. Does 2 Corinthians 9:13 include more than saints? First of all, I'd like to call your attention to the fact that in the questions that we asked last night, we asked Brother Sutton, does James 1:27 apply to the church? His answer was, no, not collectively. And that's part of the discussion, the difference between Brother Sutton and myself in this discussion. I believe that James 1:27 applies to both the individual and the church, and that the individual and the church has an obligation to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction and to keep himself unspotted from the world. And that one of the ways in which we may visit the fatherless and widows is to provide legal homes for them. I called attention to the fact that Brother Roy Cogdell, in his debate with Brother Woods on page 105, said that granted for the sake of argument, James 1:27 applies to the church. Bear that in mind. And here is a statement from Brother Eugene Brentnell. He said, quote, since the New Testament does tell that the church can care for widows, and they are connected in James 1:27, I think the principle will allow the church to care for orphans and thus the use of the passage. I agree with Brother Brentnell on that. Also, when we suggested to Brother Sutton, does Galatians 6:10 apply to the church? His answer was no. And again, that's where we differ, because I believe it does apply to the church. As you look at Galatians chapter 6, for example, in verse 1, can the church restore those who have fallen? Certainly so. Can the church fulfill the law of Christ? Certainly so. Can the church pay the preacher? Certainly so. Can the church do good unto all men? Certainly so. Could we have now our first chart? Be ready for that, if you will, in just a second. Each night we've tried to remind you of some historical things. We pointed out from the Boles Orphan Home magazine in 1927 that Brother Roy Cogdell made a fine statement in behalf of orphan homes. And also in an article in the Gospel Guardian of 1949, Brother Yater Tant and also Homer Haley commended orphan homes. Then in 1951, the Gospel Guardian editor said, we are committed to battle, and that without restraint, yes, even to the point of division. Years ago, all the brethren generally supported orphan homes. Then some brethren decided that the church could provide only for the orphans that were in a particular congregation, and that there could be no cooperation. Then they denied that the church could take care of orphans. And then they said it was to be done solely by the individual. Now it's to the point where help and relief can go only to those who are saints. And with that position, we, of course, differ. Here is the basic argument. Number one, the needs of orphan children must be adequately met. Children are poor and needy, and they need help. Acts chapter 20 and verse 35, Paul is speaking to the elders of the church at Ephesus, and he says that they need to help those who are weak. Now that word weak is from the Greek word askeneo. It means those who are weak in means, those who are needy, those who are poor. I submit to you that includes orphans who are in need. If an orphan child is in need, that orphan child should be helped. And it's something that elders ought to do. It's something that the church ought to do. I believe that Brother Brentnell was right when he said that James 1:27 is something that the church can do. And why? Because pure religion has two parts. It has helping the orphan, the fatherless, and it has helping the widow. We know that the church can help the widow, and so therefore we conclude on the same basis it can also help an orphan child. Number two, the care of orphan children is not an individual responsibility exclusively. We will be pointing to arguments that will discuss that more as we progress. Number three, an orphan child's needs cannot be adequately met without his having or being a part of a home. Psalm 68:6 says, God sitteth the solitary in families. Ephesians 6:4 says, fathers have the oversight and the training of the children. And in Galatians 4:1 and 2, we learn that fathers may have guardians and overseers over children, so that the father is to take care of his children. He may not do it personally himself. The children may be under tutors and guardians until the time appointed of the father. But those children need to be taken care of in some kind of home. Number four, the church without any further organization cannot function as a home. Elders are over the church. They are not over the home as elders. Those elders may serve as directors, but in doing so, they are doing it as directors. Number five, the Bible does not specify the kind of home that must be used to meet the needs of orphan children. It may be a foster home, legal home, or a natural home. Number six, homes structured like Childhaven are homes, benevolent institutions, which may meet legal requirements. The Lord said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. We should comply with the law of the land. Romans chapter 13 says that every soul be subject unto higher power. There is no power but of God. And number seven, the church may contribute from its treasury to a home for orphans. Then it is the case that it is in harmony with the Scriptures for churches of Christ to build and maintain benevolent organizations such as Childhaven. Let's have chart number 2, the principle of love. The church is to love all men, 1 Thessalonians 3:12. The church is to love brethren and all men. Love means helping people. 1 John 3 and James 2 points out that when people are in need, it means that we ought to help them when they are in need. Love means helping more than just brethren. Matthew 5:44 through 48 says that the Father makes it to rain and the sun to shine on the just and the unjust. Jesus said, if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so? And so love, the principle of love, means helping more than just those who are brethren. So thus the church should help more than just poor saints. Consider when Jesus did his miracles. He healed the daughter of a Syrophoenician. Notice, the daughter of a Syrophoenician. Jesus healed the servant of a centurion. Jesus fed 5,000 men, not counting the women and children. Jesus was willing to feed children. He was willing to heal a Syrophoenician woman's daughter. He was concerned not only with Jews, but also with others who needed help. The church tonight should be concerned not only with brethren, but also with others who need help. In the Old Testament, you'll notice that they had benevolence. But Brother Sutton's position makes fleshly Israel superior to spiritual Israel in benevolence. In the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy 14, 28 and 29, the tithes in the Old Testament were for the Levites, for the strangers, for the fatherless, and for the widow. But Brother Sutton's position puts the church so it cannot do even as much as they did in the tithes of the Old Testament. Chart number 6. Notice these positions, that of Brother Grider and that of Brother Bingham. Brother Grider's position was, the Bible teaches that it is a sin for the church to take money from its treasury to buy food for hungry, destitute children, and those who do so will go to hell. How does Brother Sutton feel about Brother Grider's statement? Or is he more closely aligned to Brother Bingham? Brother Bingham said if they were left destitute, I'd let money be taken out of the church treasury before I'd let them starve. Let's have number 7. We raised the question with Brother Sutton about individual matters exclusively. It was a true or false. All passages which authorize the performance of religious acts and which make specific reference to the Christian individual are passages which authorize the indicated acts to be performed by the individual Christian exclusively. And actually that's his position on James 1:27. But our position is opposite of that. Here is my position. All passages which relate to peculiarly religious matters are passages which apply with equal force both to the church and to the individual Christian. That includes James 1:27. Chart number 12 then. Notice James 1:27. Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. If to visit the fatherless is exclusively the individual, then to visit the widow would also be exclusively individual, because they are joined by the conjunction and. But 1 Timothy 5:16 says, if a man or woman have widows, let them relieve them, that the church be not charged, that it may relieve them that are widows indeed. So therefore a church may help the widow that some relative may not help. And the church is to help those who are widows indeed. So the church is to help these widows. It's obvious then that James 1:27 cannot be exclusively individual. That would put it in conflict with Paul in 1 Timothy 5:16. Number 13. Here is a chart on episkeptomai, which means to visit. It applies with equal force to the fatherless and the widows. If it is exclusively individual for one, it would be exclusively individual for the other. It is not exclusively individual for the widow. That's seen in 1 Timothy 5:16. Therefore, it is not exclusively individual for the fatherless. This word episkeptomai means to see, to inspect with the eye, to see a need and to supply that need. It means to look upon, to care for. Number 14.
15 minutes.
In this chart we have some statements that include ideas in the first chapter of the book of James. True or false? A church may pray for wisdom. A church may be a doer of the word. A church may practice pure religion. A church may keep itself unspotted from the world. Can the church do that? Brother Sutton has already said that the church may pray for wisdom. He's already admitted that the church can pray for wisdom. He has not committed himself at James 1:27 except to answer a question and say that the church cannot do that. So he says the church can pray for wisdom, but the church cannot practice pure and undefiled religion. But notice the passage that talks about the church praying for wisdom. If anyone lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not. Notice, let him ask in faith. Notice the pronoun, but yet he said that applied to the church. Now, if he did not mean this passage, he must have had some other passage in mind, and surely he would tell us what that passage is. But even if he uses another passage, it will show that this statement is not exclusively individual. It must also be applicable to the church as well. May the church be a doer of the word? Why, certainly the church can be a doer of the word. Can the church practice pure religion? Certainly. Can the church keep itself unspotted from the world? Certainly it ought to keep itself unspotted from the world. Number 16. This has to do with church and individual action again. All passages which relate to peculiar religious matters are passages which apply with equal force both to the church and the individual Christian. 2 John 9 is a passage which relates to peculiar religious matters. Therefore, 2 John 9 is a passage which applies with equal force both to the church and to the individual Christian. Whosoever transgresseth and abideth not in the doctrine of Christ hath not God. If there come one unto you and bring not this doctrine, receive him not into your house, neither bid him Godspeed. That would apply both to the individual and the church. The same can be said in a study of 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17. Is all Scripture inspired and given by inspiration of God, profitable for doctrine, reproof, for correction, instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect? Does that apply both to the individual and the church? It applies to both of them. The same thing is true in Jude 3, contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. That's true of both the individual and the church. Let's look at the next chart. You have number 17 or 25. This is number 17. Notice the church of the individual. 2 John 9, 2 Timothy 3:16, Colossians 3:17, Jude 3. Does this apply to the church only, individual only, or both? It applies to both. Do you have a number 25 there? Here is his position. He's saying that passages that mention individual action, that is exclusively the individual. And that's his conclusion on James 1:27. I believe that position is false. Let's have now chart number 50. Here are the needs of an orphan child. A child needs food, shelter, and clothing, education, supervision, medical care, entertainment, recreation. That's what a child needs. Where would that be taken care of? It would be taken care of in a home. And when a child is in a home, a church has a right to contribute to that home, and an individual has a right to contribute to that home. Let me quickly set out to you, as you're thinking about that, the following statements from Brother Brentnell. Number 1, Brother Brentnell says the church can provide a home. Page 52 of his debate, he said, yes, I do. I believe the church can provide a home. Number 2, he says the church cannot function as a home. Page 28. Anybody with sense enough to read knows that the church cannot function as a home. Number 3, he endorsed the Tipton Home Organization on page 52. He said, I explained to you, good people, how I endorse the organization of Tipton Home. I believe that Tipton Home is right in that is under an eldership. I defend the organization. Notice what he says again. I defend the organization. The organization is right. Also, notice number 4. From the debate, page 65 and 66. What the individual can do, the church can do. Brother Brentnell said, and I quote again, so I maintain that the passage teaches that whatever I as a Christian can do in relieving those for whom I am responsible, the Church of Jesus Christ can do also. And number 5, he said that a church can provide a home for widows and orphans. Pages 51 and 52. In discussing 1 Timothy 5:16, he said if they need a home, the church can provide a home. He said, I defend the organization, talking about Tipton Home. Yes, I do. I believe the church can provide a home. Now, what are the needs of a child? Here are the needs of a child. And to meet these needs, the child needs to be in a home. Food, shelter, clothing, education, supervision, medical care, entertainment, recreation. When you get a child and you start providing these needs in a home, you're going to have to meet some legal requirements. If you're going to take care of that child 24 hours a day, 24-hour-a-day child care, then you're going to have to be classified as a child care institution. The Department of Human Services will give you the information. You must be licensed, you must be chartered, you must be incorporated. And if you get over 6, you're going to have to meet these requirements in many of our states. That is a legal home, and that's how children may be taken care of. Chart number 51. This is Brother Sutton's home. Brother Sutton does have a home. He said the church may provide a place. There as you build and maintain your building. He said a church may provide necessities. There are the necessities. That includes such things as food, shelter, clothing. Notice these things that you would provide for a child. Medical expenses, entertainment, recreation. Where would these things be provided for you? They would be provided in a home. And he said you could provide the personnel. That's the people that take care of it. He did limit, however, those that could be in it. He says the only ones that can be in it are poor, saints, orphans. He limits the ones that he says can be in it. Now, isn't that something? To have everything here, the place, the necessities, and the personnel, and yet to limit it to poor, orphan saints. If you are a non-saint, if you had not been baptized, you could not get into Brother Sutton's orphan home because he has limited it. Chart number 52. The church may send and help the original natural home. It could help a family. But that family may be broken up. That family may be destroyed. They may have a new home in a legal home. They may have a new home in an orphan home. The directors of that home stand in the place of the parents over a natural home. Paul discusses in Galatians 4:1 and 2, those who may have oversight over children, tutors and governors, tutors and guardians. They are the ones responsible for children during certain ages. And what an orphan home does is stand in place of parents to take care of children who are in need until they reach an age where they're able to take care of themselves. Look at 1 Timothy 5:16 again. It says that if a man or woman have widows, let them relieve them, that the church be not charged. Now, if a man or woman has widows, they would take care of those widows. What would they provide for that widow? They would provide a home for that widow. If that man or woman did not take care of them, then the church would be responsible. What would the church provide for that widow? The church would provide a home. Then you have widows indeed. These are widows that have no one to take care of them. And the church is obligated to take care of such widows. Let's look at the next chart, number 53. Think for just a few moments about common sense. Brother Sutton's position says that you could take money from the church treasury to buy fertilizer for grass on the preacher's yard.
5 minutes.
But Brother Sutton's position is it would be a sin for the church to take money out of its treasury to buy milk for a non-saint orphan. Think about that just from the standpoint of common sense for a moment. Does that sound like common sense? Think of it from the standpoint of Jesus' ministry for a few moments. Did Jesus tell that Syrophoenician woman, "Oh no, go away, you're not a Jew"? Did Jesus go out among the children that received the food when he performed a miracle and said, "Oh, are you out here? Are you in the household of God? If you're not, you'll have to go away. You can't have this bread"? Couldn't those little children have that bread? Why, certainly they could. Think about people today as you look at children who are in need. And there are children who are in need. They're out there by the hundreds and thousands. And there are some that say, now, if you've not been baptized, if you're not a poor saint, you do not get a bit of this. Not from the church. You're left out from the standpoint of help from the church. My friends, I do not believe that that position is right. Chart number 54. There are three divine institutions. They are the church, the state, and the home. The church may apostatize, and it may be restored. Luke 8:11 says the seat of the kingdom is the Word of God. A state may be dissolved, but it may be reestablished. A home may be broken up, but it may be restored. That's what we're talking about in orphan homes. We're talking about a home being restored and helping that home. That's our position. Now, on this matter of saints-only benevolence, take the time to read 2 Corinthians 9 and verse 13. Paul is thankful for the liberal distribution that was made, and that word distribution there involves contribution. He says, unto them and unto all men. Unto them is saints, but all men is more than saints. Consider a parallel construction in 1 Thessalonians 3 and verse 12, where Paul said, abound in love one toward another and toward all men. Eis pontus is the Greek expression. It means all men. Consider 1 Thessalonians 5:15. Ever follow that which is good, both among yourselves and to all men. Acts 5:11. Great fear came upon the whole church and upon all that heard these things. Notice the contrast. You've got more than saints involved in that kind of statement. One of the things that you'll notice that's made by Brother Sutton is that he says that the orphan home is parallel to the missionary society. He's done that a couple of nights, maybe all 3 nights. But we want to show that the orphan home and the missionary society are different, and they are not parallel. A missionary society is an ecclesiasticism. An orphan home is a home. A missionary society is an association of churches, and an orphan home is an association of children. The missionary society has no scriptural right to exist. The orphan home has a scriptural right to exist, just like a natural home has a right to exist. The missionary society robs the church of its autonomy. The orphan home does not rob it of its autonomy. any more than a private home would do. Thank you for listening.